The worst part of crying in an airport is that no one stops to help. Hundreds of people brushing past, rolling suitcases thundering across polished floors, announcements echoing off glass walls, and somehow, my breakdown was just another inconvenience for travelers to navigate around. "I'm so sorry, Emma," the airline representative repeated, her plastic smile never reaching her eyes. "The boarding gate closed 20 minutes ago. There's nothing I can do." I bounced Lily on my hip, her tiny fingers tangled in my unwashed hair. 4 months old, and already a veteran of my disasters. Her diaper bag hung heavy on my shoulder, stuffed with the emergency supplies that hadn't been enough to prevent this catastrophe. "But you don't understand," I said, my voice cracking. "I have to get to Boston tonight. My father's surgery is tomorrow morning, and I promised—" The rest disappeared into a sob I couldn't swallow. Lily sensed my distress and joined in with her own wail, her face reddening as she arched her back. Great. Now we were both crying. "The next available flight is tomorrow afternoon," the woman said, typing with acrylic nails that clacked against her keyboard. "I can put you on standby, but with the convention in town, I wouldn't count on— Tomorrow is too late." I hadn't meant to shout. People turned to stare, and I shrank under their judgment. Single mother? Can't even catch a flight. Can't control her baby. I knew what they were thinking because I was thinking it too. The representative's smile tightened. "If you'll excuse me, there are other passengers waiting." I stepped away, wiping my face with the sleeve of my jacket. The nice one I'd bought secondhand for the hospital visits, now stained with infant formula and my mascara. Not that it mattered anymore. I wouldn't be there to hold Dad's hand before surgery. I wouldn't be there if something went wrong. Finding an empty row of seats near a window, I collapsed and laid Lily across my lap, fishing through the diaper bag for her pacifier. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister. "Boarding now. Where are you?" How could I tell her I'd miscalculated everything? The traffic to the airport, the time needed to check the car seat, the extra security screening for the baby formula. By the time we reached the gate, the door had closed, and no amount of begging would open it. "Shh, it's okay," I whispered to Lily, though we both knew it wasn't. Her father had disappeared the moment I'd told him I was pregnant, taking with him my savings and leaving behind only mounting bills. Now Dad, my only real support, was facing open-heart surgery with a 30% survival rate, and I couldn't even manage to be there. I didn't notice him at first, just a shift in the air, like the barometric pressure had suddenly changed. A subtle cologne cut through the antiseptic airport smell, something expensive and unfamiliar. Then a shadow fell across Lily and me. "Excuse me." The voice was deep, accented with something I couldn't place. Eastern European, maybe, softened by years of American living. I looked up through swollen eyes. He stood like he owned the terminal. Dark suit that probably cost more than my rent, perfectly tailored to broad shoulders. No tie, just the hint of a crisp white shirt beneath a jacket that didn't have a single wrinkle. His face was all angles, sharp cheekbones, strong jaw darkened with precisely maintained stubble, but it was his eyes that stopped my breath. Pale blue, almost gray, watching me with an intensity that made me want to check if I had spit up on my shirt. 2 men flanked him at a respectful distance, both wearing dark suits and earpieces, scanning the terminal with mechanical precision. One held a phone to his ear, speaking too quietly to hear. "I couldn't help overhearing," the man said, his gaze dropping to Lily, who had miraculously stopped crying to stare up at this stranger. "You missed your flight to Boston." It wasn't a question, but I nodded anyway, trying to regain my composure. "Yes. My dad's having surgery tomorrow, and I stopped myself. Why was I telling him this? Sorry, I don't mean to bother anyone." His mouth curved slightly, not quite a smile, but something that transformed his severe features into something almost approachable. Almost. "I'm flying to Boston tonight, private jet." He gestured vaguely toward the windows where the smaller aircraft were parked. "You're welcome to join me if it would help." I blinked, certain I'd misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" "My plane. I have room." He said it simply, as if offering a stick of gum, rather than a private flight worth thousands of dollars. One of his men cleared his throat softly. The man in the suit held up a hand without looking away from me, and the warning died instantly. Every stranger danger alarm in my body began screaming. People don't just offer private jets to crying women in airports. Not normal people, anyway. I clutched Lily closer to my chest. That's very kind, but I couldn't possibly. It's leaving in 30 minutes. He checked a watch that probably cost more than my car. You'd arrive in time to rest before the hospital visit tomorrow. I hesitated, torn between suspicion and desperation. Why would you do that for a stranger? Something flickered behind those cold eyes. A memory, perhaps, or a calculation. I lost my father last year, surgery complications. His voice remained steady, but his jaw tightened. I was stuck in a meeting. Didn't make it in time. The statement hung between us, simple and devastating. I found myself believing him, though I had no reason to. I have a baby, I said stupidly, as if he couldn't see Lily squirming in my arms. That ghost of a smile returned. I noticed. My plane has everything she'll need. Formula, diapers, my assistant can arrange anything else. It was madness to even consider it. Get on a private plane with a stranger who looked like he could buy and sell my entire existence without checking his bank balance. A man with security guards and a command presence that made everyone in the terminal subtly shift their paths to avoid disturbing him. And yet, what choice did I have? Dad's surgery was high risk. If something happened and I wasn't there. I don't even know your name, I said, realizing how ridiculous that objection was given everything else about this situation. Alexander Volkov. He extended his hand, and I shifted Lily to shake it. His grip was warm and firm, engulfing my smaller hand completely. And you are? Emma Chen, and this is Lily. My daughter chose that moment to smile her gummy smile at him. The little traitor. Something soft passed over Alexander's face. There and gone so quickly I might have imagined it. He nodded once. Decision made. My security team will escort you. I have one call to make. Before I could respond, he turned away, speaking rapidly into a phone I hadn't even seen him remove from his pocket. The shorter of his two guards approached me, respectful but clearly used to being obeyed. Ms. Chen, if you'll follow me. Do you have luggage? I nodded dumbly, fumbling for my baggage claim tickets. The entire situation felt surreal, like I'd stepped into someone else's life. As the guard led me toward the exit, I glanced back to see Alexander watching us, phone still at his ear. Our eyes met, and a chill ran down my spine, not entirely unpleasant, but warning nonetheless. I'd just accepted an enormous favor from a complete stranger, a man whose very presence commanded deference. What I didn't know then, as I followed his security team with Lily babbling happily on my hip, was that I'd just made a catastrophic mistake. I wasn't just getting on Alexander Volkov's private jet. I was stepping into his world, and once you enter the orbit of a man like him, you don't just walk away. The car that transported us to the private airfield was a black SUV with windows so tinted I could barely see outside. Lily was fascinated by the leather interior, reaching out to pat the seats with her tiny hands. I kept her on my lap, still half convinced I should grab my suitcase and run. First time on a private jet, the driver's eyes met mine in the rearview mirror. Unlike Alexander's other security, he seemed almost friendly. Is it that obvious? I adjusted Lily's little headband, which had gone askew during her earlier tantrum. He chuckled. Mr. Volkov doesn't often extend invitations to strangers. You must have made quite an impression. There was something in his tone, not quite a warning, but close. Before I could analyze it further, we pulled up to a sleek white aircraft that made my heart skip. This wasn't just a private plane. This was luxury beyond anything I'd ever encountered. Alexander was already there, standing at the bottom of the stairs leading up to the cabin, hands in his pockets as he spoke to a uniformed pilot. When our car stopped, his attention immediately shifted to us. To me. The driver opened my door and helped me out. Lily clutched firmly against my chest. The night air was cool, and I shivered, from the temperature or from nerves I couldn't tell. Emma? Alexander said my name like he was testing it on his tongue. Come, we're cleared for takeoff. As I climbed the stairs, careful not to trip with Lily in my arms, I had no way of knowing that missing my commercial flight wasn't an accident of poor planning. It was the first thread in a web I didn't even know existed. The interior of the jet stunned me into silence. Cream leather seats, wider than my sofa at home. Polished wood tables. Lighting that somehow managed to be both bright enough to see and soft enough to soothe. The carpet was thick enough that my worn sneakers sank slightly with each step. "Please, sit anywhere." Alexander gestured to the cabin as he followed me inside. "Would you like something to drink? Water? Wine?" "Just water, thank you." I settled into a seat, arranging Lily on my lap. She was wide-eyed, taking in the unfamiliar surroundings with the curiosity only babies possess. "This is incredible. I've never seen anything like it. It serves its purpose." He said it casually, as if a multi-million-dollar private jet was simply a practical necessity, rather than an outrageous luxury. A flight attendant I hadn't noticed appeared with a crystal glass of water for me and a hot towel. She smiled warmly at Lily, who rewarded her with a toothless grin. "Mr. Volkov, we're ready for departure. Flight time to Boston will be approximately 1 hour and 40 minutes. The pilot stood respectfully at the entrance to the cockpit. Alexander nodded. "Thank you, James." As the engines hummed to life, I secured Lily more firmly on my lap. Suddenly aware that I had no car seat or safety device for her, Alexander must have noticed my concern. "One moment." He pressed a button, and a compartment opened in the wall. From it, he withdrew what looked like a custom infant seat. "We can secure this to your chair." I stared at him. "You just happen to have a baby seat on your private plane?" That ghost of a smile appeared again. "I don't. I had it brought on board when I invited you." While I was still processing that, the efficiency, the expense, the sheer presumption that I would actually accept his offer, he knelt beside my seat and began attaching the contraption. His movements were precise, those elegant hands working with unexpected competence. A faint scar ran across his right knuckles, the only imperfection I could see. "You arranged this in the 20 minutes since we met?" I asked as he finished securing the seat. 23 minutes, he corrected, rising to his full height. "My people are very efficient." The plane began taxiing, and I placed Lily in the seat, marveling at how perfectly it fit her. She kicked her legs experimentally, delighted by this new vantage point. Alexander took the seat opposite us, his long legs stretched comfortably in the spacious cabin. "You said your father is having surgery tomorrow," he said once we were airborne, those intense eyes focused on me. "What kind of surgery?" "Triple bypass. He's had heart problems for years, but it's gotten worse." I swallowed hard. The doctor said there's a significant risk, given his age and condition. Alexander nodded thoughtfully. "Which hospital?" "Massachusetts General. Good choice. Their cardiac unit is excellent." He reached for a tablet on the table between us. "What's your father's name?" The question seemed innocent, but something in his tone made me hesitate. "Robert Chen." "Why?" He didn't answer immediately, his fingers moving across the screen with purpose. "I know several of the cardiac surgeons there. I may be able to arrange for the best team to handle his case." My mouth fell open. "You can do that?" His eyes met mine over the tablet. "I can do many things, Emma Chen." The way he said it, calm, matter-of-fact, yet loaded with implication, sent a shiver through me. Not fear exactly, something else entirely. "Why are you doing all this?" I asked, the question that had been burning in me since the terminal. The flight, the baby seat, now offering to help with my father's surgery. "You don't know me." Alexander set the tablet down, considering me with those unreadable eyes. "Let's say I recognize something in you. A determination, a desperation." His gaze slid to Lily, who was happily playing with a plush toy the flight attendant had provided. "A loyalty to family that I respect." I wasn't sure I believed him, but I also wasn't in a position to refuse help, not when Dad's life might depend on it. "Thank you," I said simply. "I don't know how I could ever repay you." Something dark flashed across his face, there and gone before I could interpret it. "We needn't worry about that now." The flight attendant reappeared with a tray of food I hadn't ordered, tiny sandwiches, fruit arranged with artistic precision, and what appeared to be homemade baby food in a small porcelain bowl. "I took the liberty of arranging a light meal," Alexander explained. "You looked like you hadn't eaten in some time." He wasn't wrong. Between packing, arranging time off from my part-time job at the library, and managing Lily's schedule, I'd forgotten to eat anything substantial since morning. That's very thoughtful, I murmured, suddenly aware of how disheveled I must look compared to the pristine luxury surrounding me. My hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, my clothes rumpled from hours of travel and baby care. Alexander seemed not to notice, or perhaps not to care. He watched as I fed Lily a tiny spoonful of the pureed food, her little face lighting up at the taste. "She likes it," I said, surprised. "Organic sweet potato with a touch of cinnamon," he replied. "My chef's recommendation." "Your chef has recommendations for baby food?" I wanted to ask, but didn't. Instead, I focused on feeding Lily, grateful for the momentary distraction from the intensity of Alexander's attention. When Lily had eaten her fill, I wiped her mouth and set her back in the safety seat, where she promptly began to doze, lulled by the gentle hum of the engines and her full belly. "She's beautiful," Alexander observed, his voice softer than I'd heard it before. "She has your eyes." I glanced down at my sleeping daughter, her delicate features peaceful in sleep. "Thank you. She's the best thing that ever happened to me, even if her timing wasn't ideal." "Her father isn't in the picture." It wasn't a question. I stiffened slightly. "No. He left when I told him I was pregnant, took most of our savings with him." Alexander's expression hardened, a muscle ticking in his jaw. "His name?" The sudden shift in his demeanor alarmed me. "It doesn't matter. He's gone, and Lily and I are better off without him." "It matters," Alexander said, his accent thickening slightly. "A man who abandons his child and steals from the mother deserves consequences." The way he said consequences made my skin prickle with unease. "It was a long time ago. I've moved on." His eyes held mine, searching for something I couldn't identify. After a long moment, he nodded once, though I sensed he hadn't dropped the subject permanently. "You work at a library," he said, changing direction so abruptly I blinked in confusion. "How did you know that?" He gestured vaguely. "Your bag. There's a library card with employee marking visible in the side pocket." I glanced down. He was right. My staff ID was partially visible in the mesh pocket of my diaper bag. The man missed nothing. "Yes, I'm a reference librarian. Part-time since Lily was born. You enjoy it?" The question seemed oddly personal coming from him, yet his interest appeared genuine. "I love books," I said simply. "I love helping people find information they need. The pay isn't great, but the hours work with Lily's schedule, and my boss is understanding about childcare emergencies." "A worthy profession," he said, surprising me. "Knowledge is power. Those who guard it and guide others to it perform a valuable service." Before I could respond, his phone vibrated. He checked it, his expression cooling to professional detachment. "Excuse me a moment." He rose and moved to the back of the cabin, speaking in a language I didn't recognize. Russian, perhaps, or Ukrainian. I took the opportunity to study him without the discomfort of his direct gaze. The way he carried himself spoke of someone accustomed to authority, to being obeyed without question. His security team had called him Mr. Volkov, with a deference that went beyond employer-employee relations. And now he was making calls in foreign languages while flying to Boston on a private jet that probably cost more per hour than I made in months. Who exactly was Alexander Volkov? Some kind of international businessman? Diplomat? Tech mogul I was too out of touch to recognize? His voice rose slightly, an edge of steel entering his tone. Though I couldn't understand the words, the message was clear. Someone had displeased him. I suppressed a shudder, grateful I wasn't on the receiving end of that controlled anger. When he returned to his seat, his expression was once again composed, though tension lingered around his eyes. "My apologies," he said. "Business that couldn't wait." "Of course." I hesitated, then ventured. "What kind of business are you in exactly?" He regarded me steadily. "Import, export, primarily. I have interests in various sectors: shipping, real estate, private security." It was both an answer and not an answer, revealing nothing specific while sounding perfectly legitimate. "It must keep you busy," I said, for lack of a better response. "Too busy, at times." His gaze drifted to Lily, still sleeping peacefully, but necessary. The flight attendant approached with a satellite phone. "Mr. Volkov, Dr. Winters is available to speak with you about the arrangements at Massachusetts General." I straightened. You already contacted someone about my father's surgery? Alexander took the phone. As I said, Emma, my people are efficient. To the flight attendant, he added, please bring Miss Chen the details of her accommodations. Accommodations? I echoed. I was going to stay with my sister. She's expecting me. I've taken the liberty of arranging a suite near the hospital, he said, as if this were perfectly normal. 2 bedrooms, with a crib for Lily and all necessary supplies. Your sister is welcome to join you there, of course. I opened my mouth to protest, then closed it again. The truth was, my sister's 1-bedroom apartment would have been cramped with all of us squeezed in. A suite near the hospital would make everything easier, especially with Lily. That's extremely generous, I said carefully. But I have to ask again, why are you doing all this? Alexander leaned forward slightly, his eyes holding mine with an intensity that made it impossible to look away. Let's say I believe in fate, Emma Chen. Our meeting wasn't coincidence. You needed help. I was in a position to provide it. His voice dropped lower. The question isn't why I'm doing this. The question is whether you're brave enough to accept it. Something in his words felt like both a promise and a warning. I should have been afraid. I should have been suspicious of kindness this excessive, this calculated. Instead, I found myself drawn to him, to the mystery he represented, to the power he wielded so effortlessly. Yes, I heard myself say. I accept your help. Thank you. His smile, a real one this time, transforming his severe features into something almost breathtaking, was like watching dawn break over a dangerous landscape. Excellent, he said softly. I think this is the beginning of a very beneficial relationship. As the plane began its descent into Boston, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just agreed to something far beyond a plane ride and a hotel suite. In Alexander Volkov's world, I suspected nothing came without strings attached. I just didn't know yet how tightly those strings would bind me. The car waiting for us at the private airfield in Boston was another black SUV with tinted windows. A different driver held the door open as Alexander helped me inside, his hand at the small of my back, a brief touch that somehow left an imprint of warmth through my jacket. Lily was awake again, fussy from the change in pressure during landing. I bounced her gently on my knee, trying to soothe her as the vehicle pulled away from the runway. She's uncomfortable, Alexander observed, watching us with those penetrating eyes. Her ears, I explained. The pressure changes bother her. Without hesitation, he reached into his jacket pocket and produced a small silver container. Opening it revealed what looked like hard candy. Try this, he said, offering one to me. Dissolve it in your mouth, then nurse her. It's a natural remedy, fennel and honey. It will help with the pressure and soothe her stomach. I stared at him, taken aback. You have nursing candy in your pocket for babies with ear pain? The corner of his mouth twitched. I have many unexpected items, Emma. My business requires preparation for all contingencies. What kind of import-export business required baby remedies? The question must have shown on my face, because his expression closed slightly. I called ahead. He clarified. When I knew you would be joining me with an infant, I had my assistant arrange appropriate supplies. In the 23 minutes between meeting me and takeoff, I couldn't keep the disbelief from my voice. 26 minutes at that point. He gestured to the candy I still hadn't taken. It will help her. I hesitated only a moment longer before accepting it. The tablet was smooth and smelled faintly of herbs. As it dissolved on my tongue, a sweet, almost medicinal taste spread through my mouth. Thank you, I murmured, adjusting Lily to nurse discreetly under the light blanket I always carried for this purpose. Alexander turned his gaze to the window, giving us the illusion of privacy in the confined space. The car moved smoothly through late-evening Boston traffic, the driver navigating with silent efficiency. I've arranged for Dr. Keller to lead your father's surgical team tomorrow, Alexander said after a few minutes had passed. She's the chief of cardiothoracic surgery, normally booked months in advance, but she's agreed to take the case as a personal favor. My head snapped up. How did you manage that? Her son's education at Oxford was made possible by a scholarship from one of my foundations. He said it matter-of-factly, as if pulling strings with world-class surgeons was entirely routine. She's the best. Your father couldn't be in more capable hands. Gratitude welled up, threatening to overwhelm me. "I don't know what to say." "Say nothing," he replied, his eyes returning to mine. "Just know that your father will receive the best possible care." We rode in silence for a while, the city lights painting streaks of color across his sharp features as we passed through downtown. Lily finished nursing and dozed off again, her tiny fist clutching the edge of the blanket. "She sleeps well," Alexander noted, his voice softer in the dim car interior. "Only in motion," I said with a tired smile. "At home she fights it like sleep is her mortal enemy." "Strong-willed," he said, something like approval in his tone. "That will serve her well in life." The car pulled up to a gleaming hotel in Back Bay, its facade illuminated with tasteful lighting. A doorman hurried to open the car door as our driver came around to assist me. "We're here, Mr. Volkov," the driver announced. Alexander nodded and exited first, then turned to offer his hand to me. I took it, careful not to disturb Lily as I stepped onto the sidewalk. His fingers closed around mine with surprising gentleness, though I could feel the strength beneath his restraint. The hotel lobby was a study in understated luxury: marble floors, crystal chandeliers, staff dressed in impeccable uniforms, who straightened almost imperceptibly as Alexander entered. He didn't approach the reception desk. Instead, a manager hurried over to us, hands clasped before him. "Mr. Volkov, welcome back to Boston. Everything has been arranged as requested." "Thank you, Michael." Alexander gestured to me. "This is Miss Chen and her daughter. They are to be given every consideration during their stay." "Of course, sir." The manager turned to me with a deferential smile. "Miss Chen, it's our pleasure to host you. Your suite is ready, and all the baby items you might need have been delivered as requested." I blinked, wondering exactly what all the baby items entailed. Before I could ask, Alexander placed his hand at the small of my back again, guiding me toward the elevators. "I've taken a suite on the same floor," he said, as we stepped into a private elevator that required a keycard, "in case you need anything during the night." My pulse quickened, though I couldn't have said why. "That's thoughtful." The elevator opened directly into a foyer with only 2 doors, one across from the other. "Your suite," Alexander said, nodding to the door on the left. He handed me a key card. "Mine is opposite." A security guard I hadn't noticed until now stood discreetly by the elevator, nodding respectfully as we passed. Another guard appeared from a service entrance at the end of the hall, completing what I realized was a security perimeter. "Is all this security normal for you?" I asked, unable to contain my curiosity. "Yes." He didn't elaborate, simply opening the door to my suite with another key card. "After you." The suite took my breath away. Larger than my entire apartment, it featured a spacious living room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Boston skyline. Beyond that, I could see 2 bedroom doors, one slightly ajar to reveal a king-sized bed turned down for the night. But what truly stunned me was the baby equipment: a state-of-the-art crib in the corner of the living room, a changing table fully stocked with diapers, wipes, and creams, a baby bathtub in the massive bathroom, several new outfits in Lily's exact size laid out on a side table, a top-of-the-line breast pump still in its packaging, even a sound machine programmed with white noise. "How did you—" I trailed off, overwhelmed. "I had your luggage brought up already," Alexander said, ignoring my stunned expression as he gestured to my battered suitcase, now sitting neatly in the entryway. "The second bedroom has been prepared for your sister, should she wish to join you. There's a kitchen stocked with essentials, though room service is available 24 hours. He moved to the coffee table, where a folder sat beside an arrangement of fresh flowers. "These are the details for tomorrow. Your father's surgery is scheduled for 8 a.m. A car will be waiting at 7 to take you to the hospital. Dr. Keller will meet with you before the procedure." I stood rooted in place, Lily asleep against my shoulder, trying to process the extravagance surrounding me. This wasn't just help. This was something else entirely, something that made alarm bells ring distantly in my mind, though they were muffled by exhaustion and gratitude. "I should put Lily down," I said finally, needing something practical to focus on. Alexander nodded. "Of course. You both need rest." He moved toward the door but paused before leaving. "Emma." The way he said my name, like he was tasting it, sent a shiver down my spine. Yes? If you need anything during the night, anything at all, call the front desk and ask for me. His eyes, those pale blue eyes that seemed to see too much, held mine. I'm a light sleeper. With that, he was gone, the door closing softly behind him. I stood in the silent opulence of the suite, Lily's warm weight against me the only familiar thing in this surreal situation. Slowly, I moved to the crib and laid her down, covering her with a blanket softer than anything we owned. She sighed in her sleep but didn't wake. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister. "Where are you? I've been waiting at the airport for hours." Guilt flooded me. In the whirlwind of Alexander's intervention, I'd completely forgotten to let her know about the change in plans. I quickly typed a response, explaining, though not very successfully, that I'd found alternative transportation and was now in a hotel near the hospital. I invited her to join me in the suite, emphasizing the convenience to the hospital and the second bedroom. Her reply came quickly. "What alternative transportation? Who pays for a suite near MGH? Are you okay?" Before I could figure out how to explain Alexander Volkov, a task that seemed increasingly complex the more I thought about it, another text arrived. "Never mind. Too late to drive into the city tonight. We'll meet you at hospital tomorrow. Text me the second you get there, and call me tonight to explain." Relieved for the reprieve, I promised to call her in a few minutes after I'd freshened up. Setting my phone aside, I wandered through the suite, still marveling at the luxury surrounding me. The bathroom was bigger than my bedroom at home, with a deep soaking tub and shower large enough for 3 people. Plush robes hung on the door, and the counter was stocked with high-end toiletries. On a whim, I turned on the bath, pouring in some of the scented oil provided. While the tub filled, I called my sister as promised, giving her an abbreviated version of events. A kind businessman had offered his private flight when he overheard my plight, and had connections at the hospital that might help Dad. I downplayed the luxury accommodations, and avoided mentioning the intense way Alexander looked at me, or how his mere presence made the air feel charged. "This sounds sketchy as hell, Emma," my sister said bluntly. "Normal businessmen don't just offer private jets to random women with babies." "He had a similar experience with his father," I explained. "And he has the resources to help. Why would I refuse?" "Because nothing comes free in this world," she countered, "especially from rich men. Just be careful, okay? Text me every hour tomorrow until I get there." After promising I would, I ended the call and slipped into the bath, letting the hot water soothe my travel-weary muscles. My sister's warning echoed in my mind. She wasn't wrong. Alexander's generosity was excessive, suspicious even, yet I couldn't bring myself to feel threatened by him. Unsettled? Yes. Intimidated, certainly, but not afraid. Perhaps I should have been. I woke at 6 a.m. to Lily's babbling. Sunlight streamed through the windows I'd forgotten to close, illuminating her as she played with her toes in the luxurious crib. For a moment, I forgot where we were, disoriented by the unfamiliar surroundings. Then it all came rushing back. The missed flight, Alexander Volkov's unexpected intervention, the private jet, this extravagant suite, and Dad's surgery just hours away. I rushed to get us both ready, marveling at how the baby supplies were exactly what we needed, down to the brand of diaper cream Lily's sensitive skin tolerated best. How had he known? Had it been in my diaper bag? Had I mentioned it? At precisely 7 a.m., my phone rang with a call from the front desk, informing me that my car was waiting. I gathered our things, surprised to find a diaper bag far nicer than my own, already packed with everything Lily might need for the day. The lobby was quiet at this early hour, just a few business travelers checking out. The same manager from the night before materialized at my side as I emerged from the elevator. "Good morning, Ms. Chen. Mr. Volkov asked me to provide you with these." He handed me a small paper bag that contained a still warm muffin and a cup of coffee. He said you might not have time for breakfast. Again, that unsettling feeling that Alexander somehow knew me, could anticipate my needs and habits after just hours of acquaintance. I'd indeed been planning to skip breakfast in my rush to reach the hospital. "Thank you," I said, accepting the items. "Is Mr. Volkov—" "He had business early this morning but asked to be informed when you left for the hospital. He'll join you there shortly." The car waiting outside was yet another black SUV, The same driver from the previous night held the door for me, helping me secure Lily's car seat, another new item that had mysteriously appeared, higher quality than anything I could have afforded. As we drove through morning traffic toward Massachusetts General Hospital, I tried to organize my thoughts, to prepare myself for whatever lay ahead. Dad's surgery, yes, but also Alexander Volkov and his inexplicable interest in my situation. The man was a puzzle, powerful, clearly wealthy, yet spending his time and resources on a struggling single mother he'd met by chance. I didn't believe in coincidences any more than I believed in fairy godmothers, which meant there was something more to Alexander's apparent altruism, some angle I wasn't seeing. The hospital came into view, its modern facade gleaming in the morning light. As the car pulled up to the main entrance, I saw a familiar figure waiting, tall, imposing, dressed in another immaculate suit. This one charcoal gray, Alexander Volkov, looking as if he'd been awake for hours, not a hair out of place. His eyes found mine through the car window, and that now familiar jolt of awareness passed through me. As the driver opened my door, I realized with startling clarity that whatever game Alexander was playing, I was already caught in it. And the most unsettling part? Some reckless part of me wanted to see how it would unfold. "Good morning," Alexander said as I approached, his eyes taking in Lily's fresh outfit and my hastily applied makeup. "Did you sleep well?" "Better than I expected," I admitted, adjusting Lily on my hip. "Thank you for the coffee." His mouth curved slightly. "You strike me as someone who requires caffeine in the morning." Before I could respond, the hospital doors slid open and a woman in surgical scrubs strode toward us. She was in her 50s, with silver-streaked hair pulled back severely from a face lined with both authority and compassion. "Alexander," she greeted him with familiar ease, confirming my suspicion that their connection went beyond a simple professional relationship. "It's been too long. Katerina." He inclined his head respectfully. "Thank you for taking this case on short notice." "I owed you one." Her piercing gaze shifted to me. "You must be Emma Chen. I'm Dr. Keller." I shifted Lily to extend my hand. "Yes, thank you so much for—" "Save your thanks until after the surgery," she interrupted, though not unkindly. "Your father's case is complex but manageable. I've reviewed his files extensively overnight." The efficiency was impressive and slightly alarming. Normally, surgical consultations took weeks to arrange, let alone a complete case review by the chief of surgery. "Follow me," Dr. Keller said, already turning to lead us inside. "We've moved your father to pre-op. You can see him briefly before we begin." As we walked through the hospital corridors, I noticed how staff members reacted to Alexander's presence. Some with obvious recognition, others with the instinctive deference given to power. He moved with the confidence of someone completely at home in these halls, nodding occasionally to personnel we passed. "You know this hospital well," I observed quietly as we waited for an elevator. "I donate to their cardiac research program," he replied. A simple explanation, yet I sensed there was more to it than philanthropy. The elevator doors opened to reveal a woman in her early 30s, who could only be my sister, May. Her eyes widened when she saw me, then narrowed as they moved to Alexander. "Emma? There you are." She embraced me tightly, then pulled back to look at Lily. "And my favorite niece, your only niece," I reminded her with a smile, grateful for her familiar presence in this increasingly surreal situation. May's attention shifted to Alexander, her expression turning guarded. "And you are?" "Alexander Volkov." He extended his hand. "A friend of your sister's." May shook his hand with visible reluctance. "Funny, she's never mentioned you before." "We met recently," he said smoothly, unfazed by her suspicion. "At the airport." Dr. Keller cleared her throat impatiently. "If the family introductions are complete, we should proceed. Mr. Chen is waiting, and we have a schedule to maintain." The four of us entered the elevator, an awkward tableau. May shot me a look that clearly said, "We'll discuss this later," before turning her attention to Dr. Keller and asking pointed questions about our father's condition. I was grateful for her medical knowledge. As a pharmaceutical researcher, she understood the technical aspects far better than I did. Dad was awake when we reached pre-op, his thin face brightening when he saw us. At 68, he looked older than his years, his once robust frame diminished by heart disease. "My girls," he said weakly. reaching for our hands. His gaze moved to Lily, then to Alexander, who had remained respectfully by the door. "And who do we have here? Daddy, this is Alexander Volkov," I said, unsure how to explain his presence. "He helped us get here when I missed my flight." Dad's eyes, still sharp despite his condition, assessed Alexander with a father's practiced scrutiny. "That was kind of you, young man." Alexander stepped forward, his demeanor shifting subtly, less commanding, more deferential. "It was my honor, Mr. Chen. I've arranged for Dr. Keller to perform your surgery. She's the finest in her field." Dad looked between Alexander and me, a question in his eyes that I couldn't answer. Before he could voice it, Dr. Keller stepped in. "We need to begin, Mr. Chen. Say your goodbyes for now." We each kissed Dad's cheek, May holding on a moment longer, whispering something in Mandarin that made him smile. I held Lily close so he could stroke her cheek one last time. "See you on the other side," he said with forced cheerfulness, as orderlies came to wheel him away. As he disappeared through the doors, I felt my composure begin to crack. The reality of the situation, Dad's life hanging in the balance, hit me with full force. I clutched Lily tighter, as if she were a lifeline. "The surgery will take approximately 6 hours," Dr. Keller informed us. "I'll send updates periodically. The waiting room is down the hall." After she left, an uncomfortable silence fell over our group. May broke it, her voice tight with controlled anger. "So, private jets and chief surgeons on speed dial. Want to explain what's really going on here, Emma?" I flushed, acutely aware of Alexander's presence beside me. "It's exactly what I told you. I missed my flight, and Alexander offered to help. People don't just offer private jets and 5-star hotel suites out of the goodness of their hearts," she hissed, keeping her voice low. "Especially not to women traveling alone with babies." Alexander cleared his throat softly. "Perhaps I should give you sisters some privacy. Emma, I'll be nearby if you need anything." Before I could respond, he stepped away, moving down the hall with the fluid grace I was coming to recognize as characteristic of him. Even in retreat, he commanded attention, his tall figure drawing glances from hospital staff. "Who is he, really?" May demanded once he was out of earshot. "And don't give me that 'we just met' line again. Men like that don't help strangers without expecting something in return." "I don't know who he is, not really," I admitted, leading her toward the waiting room. "But he's the reason Dad has the best cardiac surgeon in the country. He's the reason we're staying in a suite 5 minutes from the hospital instead of crammed into your apartment. Whatever his motives, his help is real." May looked unconvinced. "Have you Googled him at least? Checked if he has a criminal record?" I hadn't, and the realization made me feel foolish. In the whirlwind of events, I'd accepted Alexander's help without the most basic due diligence. "I'll do it now," I said, pulling out my phone while settling Lily on a playmat I'd brought from the hotel. A quick search for Alexander Volkov Boston yielded several results. Most prominently, articles about charitable donations to various causes, including Massachusetts General's cardiac unit. A few business news pieces mentioned his import-export company and real estate holdings. There were photos of him at galas and fundraisers, always impeccably dressed, often alone or with business associates rather than romantic partners. Nothing overtly suspicious, yet the information felt carefully curated, as if designed to present a specific image to the world. What was missing spoke volumes. No personal interviews, no details about his background or private life. "He seems legitimate," I said, showing May the screen. "A businessman and philanthropist." She scrolled through the results, her skepticism evident. "Very polished. Too polished, if you ask me." I couldn't disagree. There was something too perfect about Alexander's public persona, like a facade carefully maintained. The waiting room began to fill with other families, their anxious faces mirroring our own. Lily grew fussy as the morning wore on, and I paced the corridor with her, trying to soothe her restlessness. It was during one of these walks that I quite literally bumped into a man turning the corner, one of Alexander's security team, I realized, recognizing him from the airport. "Excuse me, Ms. Chen," he said politely, steadying me with a hand on my elbow. "It's fine. I wasn't looking where I was going." I bounced Lily, who had started to whimper. "Is Alexander still here?" The man nodded. Mr. Volkov is in a meeting with hospital administration, but he asked me to check on you periodically. Do you need anything? The formality of the arrangement struck me anew. Alexander had assigned security to monitor me, to report back to him. The gesture could be interpreted as thoughtful or controlling, depending on one's perspective. We're fine, thank you, I said, then hesitated. Actually, could you tell me, how long have you worked for Mr. Volkov? Something flickered in the man's eyes. Caution, perhaps. 7 years, ma'am. And what exactly does he do? His business, I mean. He mentioned import-export, but that's rather vague. The security guard's expression became carefully neutral. Mr. Volkov has diverse business interests. It's not my place to discuss them. His non-answer was more revealing than any direct response might have been. Whatever Alexander's true business was, it required discretion from even his long-term employees. Of course. Thank you anyway. I turned to head back to the waiting room. Ms. Chen, the guard called after me. When I looked back, his expression had softened slightly. Mr. Volkov is a good man, better than most in his position. Whatever you may hear or think, remember that. Before I could ask what he meant, he continued down the hall, leaving me with more questions than answers. The first surgical update came at the 3-hour mark. Everything proceeding as expected. Dad's vitals stable. May and I clung to each other in relief, the tension between us temporarily forgotten. At hour 4, Alexander returned, carrying a bag that turned out to contain lunch for both May and me, as well as fresh clothes for Lily. I thought you might be hungry, he said simply, setting the food on a side table. The cafeteria options are abysmal. May watched him narrowly, but accepted the gourmet sandwich he offered. I noticed she waited until I took a bite of mine before trying hers, a precaution that would have seemed paranoid if not for the increasingly strange circumstances. Any updates? Alexander asked, his gaze falling on Lily, who was now sleeping in a portable bassinet. So far, so good, I replied. Dr. Keller sent word that everything's on schedule. He nodded, seemingly unsurprised. She's the best. Your father is in capable hands. A nurse appeared in the doorway. Ms. Chen, there's a call for you at the desk. Puzzled, I followed her to the nurse's station, where she handed me a phone. Emma Chen, I answered, expecting perhaps one of Dad's friends calling for an update. Ms. Chen, this is Detective Sullivan with Boston PD. The male voice was brusque, professional. I understand you're currently at Massachusetts General Hospital with Alexander Volkov. My blood ran cold. Yes, he's a friend. Is there a problem? I strongly suggest you find a private place to speak, away from Mr. Volkov and his associates. Heart pounding, I glanced back toward the waiting room, where Alexander was engaged in conversation with May. I have a sleeping baby. I can't just... Ms. Chen, the detective cut me off. For your safety and your child's, please listen carefully. Alexander Volkov is not who you think he is. What do you mean? I lowered my voice, turning away from the corridor. He's the head of one of the most powerful organized crime syndicates on the East Coast. We've been investigating him for years. Racketeering, money laundering, extortion. We haven't been able to make charges stick, but believe me, he's dangerous. The words hit me like physical blows. A crime boss. A mafioso. Not a businessman or philanthropist, but a criminal. One powerful enough to evade prosecution. That can't be right, I stammered. Though even as I denied it, pieces began falling into place. The excessive security, the deference from everyone we encountered. The way he could arrange impossible things with a single phone call. I understand this is difficult to hear, Detective Sullivan continued. But you need to distance yourself from him immediately. We can arrange protection if necessary. My mind raced. If what the detective said was true, I'd unwittingly accepted help from a criminal, had allowed him into our lives, had even left my daughter alone with him briefly. Yet Alexander had been nothing but helpful and respectful. He'd arranged the best care for my father, had provided comfort and security when I most needed it. His actions didn't align with the detective's description. Why are you telling me this? I asked, suspicion growing. If he's as dangerous as you claim, why approach me at all? A slight pause. We've been building a case. Your unexpected connection to him presents an opportunity, if you were willing to help us, and there it was. Not concern for my safety, but an attempt to recruit me as an informant, to use my tenuous connection to Alexander for their investigation. I need to go, I said abruptly. My father is in surgery. Ms. Chen, please consider. I hung up, my hands shaking. When I turned around, Alexander stood at the end of the hallway, watching me with those unreadable eyes. Had he heard? Did he know who had called? His expression revealed nothing as I approached. Everything all right? I forced myself to meet his gaze, searching for signs of the criminal mastermind the detective had described. I saw only the man who had helped us when we were desperate, who had arranged the best possible care for my father. Wrong number, I lied, the words bitter on my tongue. Something in his eyes told me he knew better. But he didn't press. Instead, he simply offered his arm. Dr. Keller sent another update. Your father is doing well. The most critical part of the procedure is complete. Relief washed over me, temporarily displacing my confusion and fear. Dad was going to be okay. Whatever else was happening, whatever Alexander Volkov truly was, that fact remained. As we walked back to the waiting room, his hand came to rest lightly at the small of my back again. That now familiar gesture that somehow communicated both protection and possession. I should have pulled away, should have made an excuse, taken Lily, and left with May. Instead, I let him guide me back to my sister, the detective's warnings echoing in my mind, even as I leaned slightly into Alexander's steadying touch. I was playing with fire, and the most terrifying part was, some reckless part of me didn't want to stop. The remainder of Dad's surgery passed in a haze of anxiety, the detective's revelation competing with my concern for my father. I found myself watching Alexander with new eyes, searching for signs of the dangerous criminal Sullivan had described. Yet what I saw contradicted the detective's warnings. Alexander was attentive without being intrusive, anticipating our needs with uncanny accuracy. When May mentioned being cold, a cashmere wrap appeared. When Lily became cranky, he produced a teething toy that soothed her instantly. He handled calls discreetly, stepping away to maintain privacy while his security team remained at a respectful distance. Was this all an elaborate facade? A performance designed to win my trust for reasons I couldn't fathom? Finally, at the 6-hour mark, Dr. Keller appeared, surgical cap still in place, her expression giving nothing away. The surgery was successful, she announced without preamble. We encountered some complications with calcification around the valves, but were able to address them. He's being moved to recovery now. The relief was so intense I nearly collapsed. May gripped my hand, her earlier suspicions temporarily forgotten in the joy of knowing Dad had made it through. When can we see him? She asked. He'll be heavily sedated for the next 12 hours. I recommend you both get some rest and return tomorrow morning. Dr. Keller's gaze shifted to Alexander. The post-operative care will be extensive. I've arranged for the best rehabilitation specialists. He nodded once. Thank you, Katerina. Your skill is unmatched. Something passed between them, an understanding born of shared history. Then Dr. Keller turned back to us. Your father is a strong man. With proper care, he should make a full recovery. She squeezed my shoulder briefly, the gesture startlingly human from someone so professionally detached, before departing. As we gathered our things, Alexander's phone vibrated. He checked it, his expression darkening infinitesimally before smoothing back to its usual composed state. I must attend to some business, he said, returning the phone to his pocket. My driver will take you both back to the hotel. Emma, might I have a word before you leave? May shot me a warning look, which I ignored as I followed Alexander to a quiet corner of the waiting room. Detective Sullivan contacted you, he said without preamble, his voice low enough that only I could hear. My breath caught. How did you... The hospital switchboard is monitored by my security team, a standard precaution. His expression remained neutral, but his eyes had hardened to chips of blue ice. I assume he made certain claims about me and my business. There was no point denying it. He said you're the head of an organized crime syndicate, that you're being investigated for racketeering, money laundering, extortion. I expected denial, perhaps outrage. Instead, Alexander simply studied me, as if gauging my reaction rather than defending himself. And do you believe him? he asked finally. I don't know what to believe, I answered honestly. You've been nothing but helpful and generous. But your level of influence, the security, the way everyone defers to you. I took a deep breath. It's not normal, Alexander. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. No, it's not normal. He glanced over to where Lily slept in May's arms. Do you feel unsafe with me, Emma? Do you believe I would harm you or your daughter? The question cut to the heart of my confusion. Despite the detective's warnings, despite the growing evidence that Alexander was not simply a legitimate businessman, I had never felt physically threatened by him. No, I admitted. I don't believe you would hurt us. Then trust that instinct. He reached out, his fingertips lightly brushing my cheek in a gesture so unexpected it left me momentarily speechless. Go rest. We'll speak more tomorrow. As his security team escorted us to the waiting car, May remained suspiciously quiet. Only when we were alone in the hotel suite did she explode. You're in over your head, Emma. That man is dangerous. I can feel it. She paced the living room while I put Lily down for a nap. The way his people watch everything, the way he knows things he shouldn't. It's not right. He arranged for Dad to have the best surgeon in the country, I countered, though my own doubts echoed her concerns. He's provided everything we've needed. And what does he want in return? May demanded. Men like that don't give without expecting something back. The question had haunted me since the airport. Why me? Why us? I don't know, I admitted. But right now, I'm just grateful Dad's okay. We can figure out the rest tomorrow. May clearly wanted to argue further, but exhaustion had claimed both of us. She retreated to the second bedroom while I took a long shower, letting the hot water wash away the hospital's antiseptic smell and the day's tension. As I stepped out, wrapped in one of the plush hotel robes, my phone chimed with a text message from an unknown number. Check the living room. Curious and wary in equal measure, I opened the door to find a garment bag hanging from the decorative screen. Inside was an elegant black dress, simple yet clearly expensive, with a note pinned to the collar. For tomorrow evening. I thought you might not have packed formal wear. Alexander. Beneath the dress was a shoebox containing heels in my exact size, and a smaller bag with understated jewelry, silver and sapphires that would complement my eyes. Formal wear? For what? As if anticipating my confusion, another text arrived. Tomorrow, after visiting hours. Dinner, just the two of us. There are things we should discuss. I stared at the message, my emotions a conflicted tangle. The rational part of me knew I should decline, should distance myself from this man who might be everything the detective claimed. Yet another part, a part I barely recognized, wanted to understand him, to unravel the mystery of Alexander Volkov. After a long moment, I typed, Yes, morning brought a flurry of activity. Dad was awake, groggy but stable. May and I spent most of the day at his bedside, watching for every small sign of improvement. Dr. Keller visited twice, her assessment cautiously optimistic. Dad would need extensive rehabilitation, but the surgery had been a success. Throughout the day, I felt the weight of the evening ahead. May had reluctantly returned to her apartment for work clothes, planning to come back for another hospital shift in the evening. I hadn't mentioned my dinner plans with Alexander, knowing she would object strenuously. As visiting hours ended, I kissed Dad's forehead and promised to return first thing tomorrow. That young man, he said weakly, his voice raspy from the intubation tube. The one who arranged all this. He came by earlier. I froze. Alexander was here? When? This morning before you arrived. Dad's eyes, though tired, were sharp. He wanted to check on my progress personally. Interesting fellow. What did you talk about? I asked, trying to keep my tone casual. Dad's lips curved in a faint smile. You, mostly. He asked for my permission to take you to dinner. The old-fashioned gesture surprised me. And what did you say? I said my daughter makes her own decisions. His hand found mine, squeezing with what little strength he had. But I also said that any man who arranges a top surgeon for a stranger's father deserves at least one dinner. I couldn't argue with that logic, though I wondered what Dad would think if he knew the detective's accusations. Back at the hotel, I found myself staring at the black dress Alexander had provided. It was perfect. modest enough to be appropriate, yet cut to flatter my figure in ways my usual wardrobe never did. As I slipped it on, I wondered how he had known my size so exactly. At precisely 7 o'clock, a knock came at my door. Alexander stood in the hallway, breathtaking in a dark suit that made his pale eyes even more striking by contrast. For a moment, he simply looked at me, something like appreciation in his gaze. "You look beautiful, Emma," he said finally, offering his arm. The restaurant was on the hotel's top floor, with panoramic views of Boston's skyline. As we were led to a private dining room, I realized the entire section had been reserved just for us. "You didn't need to close the whole restaurant," I said as he held my chair. "Privacy seems advisable, given what we need to discuss." He took the seat opposite mine, his movements graceful and controlled. A waiter appeared with champagne, pouring 2 glasses before discreetly withdrawing. Alexander raised his in a toast. "To your father's recovery." I touched my glass to his. "To skilled surgeons and guardian angels, however unexpected." He smiled, a real smile that transformed his severe features. "Is that how you see me? A guardian angel?" "I don't know how to see you," I admitted. "Everything about our meeting, your help, it's all so improbable. Yet here we are." He set down his glass, his expression turning serious. "You have questions. Ask them." I took a deep breath. The detective, was he telling the truth? About what you are? Alexander's gaze never wavered. "Detective Sullivan and I have history. His description of my business activities is somewhat exaggerated, though not entirely inaccurate. It wasn't a confession, but it wasn't a denial either. So you're what? A mobster? A mafia boss?" "Such dramatic terms," he said mildly. "I oversee various enterprises, some of which operate in gray areas of the law. I protect what's mine. I honor my commitments. I deal harshly with betrayal." The casual way he confirmed my suspicions sent a chill through me. "Why me? Why help us?" His expression softened slightly. "The first moment I saw you in that airport, exhausted, desperate, yet still fighting for your family, I recognized something in you. A resilience. A loyalty I respect." He paused. "And yes, you reminded me of someone I once knew, someone I failed to protect." Before I could ask who, he continued, "But that's not the whole truth. When I heard you mention your father's surgery, I felt drawn to intervene. My own father died during a similar procedure 3 years ago. I was delayed by business, missed saying goodbye by 20 minutes. The pain in his voice seemed genuine, a rare crack in his composed facade. "I'm sorry," I said softly. "As am I." He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine. "What began as an impulse has become something more complicated. I find myself invested in you, Emma, in you and Lily." The admission hung between us, weighted with implications I wasn't sure I fully understood. "What does that mean, exactly?" I asked, my heart racing. "It means I want to continue helping you. Your father's medical expenses are considerable. Lily will need good schools eventually. Your career at the library, while admirable, can't provide the security you both deserve." I withdrew my hand from his. "If you're offering to be my sugar daddy or something equally inappropriate—" "Nothing so crude," he interrupted, looking genuinely offended. "I'm offering protection, support, a place in my world if you want it. And what would I have to do in return?" His eyes held mine. "Be exactly who you are, the woman who would board a private jet with a stranger to reach her father's side. The mother who protects her child with fierce determination, the daughter who values family above all." He paused. "I have wealth, Emma, power. What I lack is someone I can trust completely." The realization dawned slowly. "You're lonely," I said, the words escaping before I could reconsider them. Something vulnerable flashed across his face, there and gone in an instant. Perhaps, in that moment, I saw beyond the dangerous man Detective Sullivan had described, beyond the powerful figure who commanded respect with his mere presence. I saw someone human, someone capable of genuine connection despite the world he inhabited. "I can't answer now," I said finally. "This is a lot to process." He nodded, unsurprised. Take whatever time you need. My offer stands regardless. He reached for his champagne again. Now, shall we enjoy our dinner? The chef has prepared something special. As the meal progressed, conversation shifted to lighter topics. Alexander spoke of his travels, his appreciation for literature, his childhood in Russia before coming to America as a teenager. I found myself relaxing despite everything, drawn to his intelligence and unexpected moments of humor. By the time dessert arrived, a comfortable warmth had settled between us, the beginning of something I couldn't yet name, but couldn't deny either. Whatever you decide, Alexander said as he walked me back to my suite, know that your father's care is guaranteed. That was never conditional. At my door, he paused, his gaze dropping briefly to my lips before returning to my eyes. May I? I nodded, my breath catching as he leaned down to press his lips to mine, a kiss both gentle and restrained, yet filled with promise. When he pulled back, his eyes had darkened. Good night, Emma. As I watched him walk to his own suite, I knew my life had irrevocably changed. Alexander Volkov had entered my world like a force of nature, upending everything I thought I knew about myself and my limitations. The path forward was unclear, fraught with complications I could barely imagine. Yet as I closed the door behind me, I found myself already anticipating tomorrow, and the chance to see him again. Sometimes the most dangerous decisions are the ones that feel most right. And Alexander Volkov, whatever he truly was, felt like a risk worth taking.